Allow me to introduce my esteemed colleague, Morty Oberstein. The only time I ever say esteemed is when I'm introducing you. Other times I'm just like my homie Morty. This is Morty Oberstein, head of SEO branding here at Wix. And of course, the founder of Search Engine Journal. Founder, right, Lauren? Not co-founder?
Founder. Yeah, founder of Search Engine Journal. 24 years ago.
So oh, wow.
It's been a while. Yep.
That's a good year to start because, it's like if it's 2000, so it's like 24 years later. I got it. Perfect. It's 2025. Yeah, exactly.
Actually, I got my dates mixed up. 21 years ago.
Oh, okay. That was not as easy.
So it was 2003. I started SEJ, and it's grown since.
Sure has.
Right. Yeah.
By the way, plug for SEJ. Check out searchenginejournal.com. They got a bunch of great content over there. And you'll see Lauren every once in a while pop up in a webinar and a podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, I got webinars at least 3 times a month right now.
Wow.
And yeah, the occasional podcast. Morty's been on a couple of times, so it's always fun.
Thanks, man.
Despite Morty being on, is that what you were saying?
Exactly.
I never miss a chance to take a pot shot.
We never do Morty's live. We have to just beep some things out and edit from time to time.
Yeah.
But
it happens. Yeah. Unlike the Yankees, we're just connected.
Anyway, we're here to do something. Live SEO audit, site audit for e-commerce. Let's get it started, everyone. I'm going to run you through the logistics and I'm going to hand it off. Okay, so I've already introduced us. You don't need to know anything about me. Just pay attention to these two wonderful professionals. We are being recorded. You will be able to watch this recording on YouTube or on the landing page later after the fact. So yes, we're being recorded. You don't have to ask that question. It will be there as soon as it's ready. YouTube link will be sent with the recording URL to your email address. You can ask questions via the Q&A panel. Sometimes people ask questions in the chat. That's perfectly fine, but there you're probably going to get more of the attention of other participants, which is a great resource as well. But if you want to get in front of us, the Q&A is much better. And if you're asking questions, you're really engaged, you have a better shot of your question being picked if you choose to write a very detailed question. Provide a little bit of context, let us know about your business. That's how we can provide the best answers possible there. And then if you want to learn more about SEO in general, check out the SEO Learning Hub. That's where you can sign up for the webinars that we have every month, wix.com/SEO/learn, and then /webinars for the webinars. All right, Morty, you game? You ready?
I'm always ready. Let's do it.
I'm going to go off this screen share and I'm going to hand off to you right now. Screen share is gone. I feel like the pressure is off.
No, the pressure's on now on me to figure out which screen is the right screen, which is always the tough question, right? Moment of truth.
I would think it's easier for you because you only have one screen, but
I don't have one screen. I wish I had one screen sometimes. Do you see a boxer?
I see a boxer.
Yes. All right, we're good.
We're ready to go.
Okay. So welcome. Really glad you all are here. I'm going to take a wider look at some of the sites that came through, a couple of websites, and take it from more of a marketing strategy point of view and touch a little bit on the SEO, and then I'll hand it off to Lauren, who will drive it home from the SEO point of view. So a little bit of like balance in the force today. I'm going to start off with this website, Bosker, which sells boxing equipment. And I'm going to actually not start off on the home page. I'm going to start on the about page. I love the about page. The about page basically tells the story of like who they're targeting and why. And which basically, if you're like a weekend warrior, kind of, I'm trying to get into boxing, this is a great place for you because they sell equipment that's affordable, but it's also quality. So you don't have to worry like, I don't know if I really want to be a boxer. So I don't want to spend a ton of money, but I also don't want to buy anything cheap. So perfect, like, middle ground. Here we go. But if we go to the home page, and I feel like I'm highlighting this because I think a lot of e-com sites make this, I want to call it a mistake, but fall into this little like trap where you want to get that conversion right away. You want to get people like shop now. Here we go. Let's get started. But from a search engine optimization point of view, and also from a brand point of view, there's not much here outside of the actual product images or product titles or pricing. So you're not really giving much context. So imagine your audience is coming in because they're a weekend warrior who wants to take up boxing. They hit that about page and they understand it, but if they don't hit that about page, they don't really understand what differentiates you from the rest of the market. So imagine you had a tagline. I'm going to be a little bit cliche for a second. Imagine you had a tagline here like, step into the fight. with boxing equipment that is both affordable and yada, 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 yada. You'd be giving context to the user and you'd be giving context to search engines at the same time. And you give them a reason to understand, like, wait a second, like, this is not like, I don't know, I'm not a boxer. So like, I don't know, maybe they don't make boxing equipment like Wilson or Spalding or whatever the big name brands are that sell boxing equipment. Why you're not going to them and why you're sticking with us over at Bosker is because like we understand you. And to really like lean into that. And you can go even one step further with it, like double down on that targeting. If you're really targeting that niche audience or the very like, crosshairs of weekend warrior, I'm getting into boxing kind of thing, you can not only have a tagline information that would give context to the user and to search engines, but you can also have resources like, I don't know, like training guides or track your progress, all that kind of thing that shows that you really speak to that audience is super helpful on an e-com site. And a lot of e-com sites don't think that way because again, you really are trying to get into that conversion. Okay. Site number 2. Let's stick with sports. This is League Outfitters. So they sell training equipment and they do a lot of custom stuff for, I don't know, your local high school team, your local, I don't know, university, D3, D2 kind of school. And they sell uniforms, which is awesome. And as a big sports nut, I'm totally into this. Side point, and this is just like a thing like just want to be careful with, like that to me, it looks like Trae Young, the basketball player. Lauren, you correct me if I'm wrong because I'm not a big basketball nut, but I'm pretty sure that's Trae Young.
It does look similar there. Let me see.
Right? And that's Francisco Lindor of the New York Mets, who I definitely know. So you want to just be a little bit careful because are you targeting your local school team? Are you the supplier for the Mets? Which would be amazing. Right? So just like the visuals, it's something to just keep an eye on and just be aware of. The thing that I'll say here, and as someone who is into youth sports, there's a lot of meat to chew on. There's a lot of emotion in this. And I'll give you an example of a website that really nails it. It's called BSN Sports, and they do similar things. They sell uniforms, and their H1, or I think it's their H1, their tagline is making an impact on the heart of the game, which is like solid messaging. Like it really hits home. It explains why you want to spend the money on buying uniforms for your team, because it shows like who you are, your identity, your heart, and so forth. And if they could do something, again, similar to the Bosker website, if you had that emotional hook in there, it helps give you the differentiation and it gives you that buy-in to really convert. And what the site's doing here, like another little lesson from an e-com point of view, is they're focusing on basketball. And that could be because like that's where their main market is. It could also be like maybe now is when, I don't know, high school teams are starting to order for their basketball season, whatever it might be. And they're going with, premium basketball gear for every player. And that's fine. And that's good. And it's definitely better than having nothing there. Like the Bosker website went right into it. That's messaging. It's trying to connect with you. It's trying to be there for you. It's trying to show. But when you think into it and you think into those hooks that get you to convert and get you to dive into, now I'll click that CTA. If you add a layer of depth and you add a layer of meaning, and in this particular case with youth sports, there's so much there that you can do. I mean, if you look at the other website for a second, they even have like join the movement. They're powering girls in sports. There's so much there to chew on. If you can put a little bit of emotional emphasis or emotional, they'll call it meaning, into that initial messaging, I think you'll see that click on shop all basketball jump. They give them a reason to connect, give them a reason to click outside of utility. And it's something that on the e-com side, again, I'm emphasizing because it's so easy to lose that because we're so concerned about getting the click and getting the dollar, but that emotional connection first goes a really, really long way. And to continue with that, I'm going to talk about
Morty.
Yes.
I'm going to hop in first of all to give you a little bit of a breather and let your heart rate, your blood pressure maybe settle down just a second.
The taglines and just go for that emotional hook. It's so hard for e-com sites.
I just want to get things clear because you're going from a very much a messaging perspective, right? And we're talking about SEO site art. And I want to clarify things. We are going to get more towards the SEO nuts and bolts here.
I'm going to get it. Yes. One, okay. That's true. And 2 or 3, I'm going to show you how it connects directly right now. This is like part of my game plan.
Foreshadowing.
All of this, I have a master plan, George. all of this kind of like plays into how you can leverage things for SEO. Because like, again, I don't speak Spanish well, but what this website does is talking about like collectible like Matchbox Hot Wheel cars. And it's a niche market, but it's a market that's very engaged. They're hobbyists, right? So if you can do things, which this site started to do, but could really double down on, showcasing how to repair things, how to restore things. And there are, by the way, like super nice keywords that have nice search volumes around like how much is my car worth, all those kind of things that you can really showcase and create community about. If you're in the SEO space right now, like one of the hot things, I saw this on SEJ the other day, they had like Dr. P talking about this, I think, is brand and SEO. And the reason why I'm focusing on messaging and I'm focusing on the brand side, and this is a direct tie into SEO, is if you can get that momentum, if you can get people connecting with your brand, if you can get people coming to this website because they have a whole community about how to restore your Matchbox cars or how to sell them or which ones are valuable or what to look for, what makes them valuable or not valuable, and you can really establish community around that, that gets you mentions, that gets you links, that gets you people searching for branded searches. So let's imagine like you're this sports website and you really get your audience to connect with you. If you get people to start searching for league outfitters, brand apparel or team apparel, that's a signal to Google. If you can get people to talk about league outfitters and then list them on best custom uniforms, like best places to get a custom uniform and get that link or get that mention, all of this messaging and all that emotional connection, or in this particular case, the community building, all of that creates momentum, and all of that momentum has SEO impact, which is why part of the reason why you're starting to see the SEO community start talking about how do you build up that brand and how do you leverage that for SEO, or we're talking about the importance of doing that. And I think one of the reasons why I wanted to focus on this before I turn it over to Lauren is we talk a lot about doing this, but how you do this is something that we don't talk a lot about. And the how you do this part is you get that connection. You sometimes ignore the direct, like premium basketball gear, it's super direct, and you kind of get that emotional buy-in, you get that emotional depth, or you create that community that gets that cadence, you get that momentum, which then results in all of that good SEO stuff. Does that answer your question, George?
For
Then
the
that's all
record,
I
it
have to
wasn't
say
my
about-
question. It was inspired by something in the chat. I wasn't
Oh.
taking the opportunity to rib
George
at
is a
you.
good moderator.
Yeah, I was teasing the audience.
I was teasing the audience too. I was getting to it, but like,
I don't want to do too good of a job though, because Crystal Carter is usually in the seat, and if I do too good a job, then they'll give it to me. So I'm gonna tone it back.
Okay.
What am I kidding? I could never be as good as Crystal, but we're not here to talk about that. Are we moving on to Lauren now? What's the deal, Morty?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Well,
say like one more point.
There's one add-on, Morty, I'd like to add to League
for it.
Outfitters, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, let's jump back to that site.
I pulled their backlink portfolio, and it's mostly like listicles, coupon pages, things like that. And I was really surprised because a company like this works directly with high schools, youth leagues, possibly colleges, right? And that's a great chance to get their customers to showcase. A lot of those different schools will send out newsletters, announcements to the parents of students, telling them where they can buy more gear or buy specific gear. So by really working with their partners and their distributors, whether it's on the school level, the partner level, and just getting them to showcase the league, league outfitters on their site on where they can buy more of this gear, gives them an incredibly natural link and a super high authority link back to them, which would really change the game from their overall link portfolio and their authority across the web. And I really see this as being a lost opportunity on that side. And that kind of does get into the community building and the building a better long-term relationship with your partners. I was really shocked to see that there weren't many schools or leagues linking back to them. And I've done some things in the past too, where I've had like sponsor like the US goes back and that, which is a little bit questionable perhaps. But this is an opportunity where they're working directly with them and having that, having that partnership that reciprocal partnership back and forth where, hey, if I want to buy some more gear, I can go to the site, and the site can also showcase the schools that they work with at the same time. So it's a win-win situation for both. And I think that it's definitely being overlooked in this case.
It's a great point, and I feel like if you're in the local SEO space, you know this. And actually, think of a podcast episode. We have a SERPs Up podcast that comes out every Wednesday. We have an episode upcoming with Greg Sterling and Mike Blumenthal of Niner Media, and the episode is about the merging of offline and online marketing. And I feel like if you're in the local SEO space, like you get that. If you have a local school buying from you, you're able to create those partnerships. You're able to get that, they'll link to you, they'll showcase you on their website, they'll push you out there. But I feel like sometimes we're in the e-com space and we're not in the local space. We don't necessarily realize the connection in that offline marketing or like the beyond SEO marketing and what actually impacts SEO. For some reason, like there's this like lack of like direct connection or 1 + 1 = 2 kind of thing on the e-com side.
Exactly.
Lauren, I'm going to hand it off to you. You want to run through a couple of sites?
Sure. Let's go back to Bosker Boxing. And I think this is something that can be applied to almost anyone in the e-com space, especially now that it's holiday shopping season. And this is something that's not too late to do, right? Especially because a lot of the time building up the holiday shopping season, you do have code freezes. First things first, look at the subheaders on this page, right? Bestsellers, our collection. Our collection of what? Is it our collection of boxing gear? Is it our collection of t-shirts? Like just having something in there in that space to better define exactly, just set the tone on what Bosker sells really helps from just an SEO perspective and an overall just like usability perspective. I see so many sites right out the gate that just use the word collection over and over again. Our collection, about our products, about our this. They're just essentially using, pronouns and non-descriptive terms to define what they sell. This is a great opportunity to go in there and just edit those subheaders to better define on the homepage exactly what the rest of your site is about. Because if I couldn't see these images, I'd have no idea what this site sells. At the same time, I did notice that Bosker Boxing it's part of the Commonwealth, right? And I may be mistaken, but I do believe that Boxing Day is also something in Australia. So right now we have Black Friday, Cyber Monday shopping on the rise. We have holiday shopping, right? Whether it be Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever holiday someone is celebrating during this time of year. And then we also, have Boxing Day, which is an official shopping holiday and I guess return holiday in a lot of the Commonwealth countries. When I searched for Bosker Boxing promo codes, Bosker Boxing coupons, Bosker Boxing Black Friday deals, I did not find anything coming from Bosker Boxing. What I found were coupon sites that had listings for this site and some of the other brands that we're looking at in this in this webinar today. One thing I would definitely to prepare for those upcoming holidays, because whenever your customer, say they find the site, right? You better optimize the site. It's ranking a little bit better, this and that, from an SEO perspective, right? There's SEO attribution that happens in e-commerce all the way to the cart. But then what we all do, we have a little section. Someone's trying to purchase a product that says enter your promo code. And the first thing that people do is they go to Google and they search for the brand and promo code. Chances are what they'll find in Google are coupon sites that rank like number 1, number 2, number 3. And sometimes there's hardly any pages on the site itself that talk about these discounts and promos. Then the user goes straight to a coupon site, finds coupons that may work, may not work, maybe even coupons for competition. They go back, they try them out, they enter that coupon, and suddenly that SEO attribution into an affiliate marketing attribution. So not only can that affect your overall SEO reporting and tracking, but it also means that you're spending more money and giving more money to affiliates and coupon sites for something that they've done nothing for. So if you do have a blog on your site, this is a great opportunity to put together a blog post about, Bosker Boxing's Black Friday and Cyber Monday special deals, Bosker Boxing's Boxing Day deals that you can't, ignore, whatever it may be. So when someone goes to Google, they're prompted with a promo code. They go to Google, they search for it, they find the site that they're already on, click over, find that promo code, and introduce it into the cart, keeping them within the ecosystem and not losing any attribution on that side, which I think is a pretty massive deal. And most companies that I've worked with that have implemented this have seen a drop in what they're paying out to affiliates, and are very happy to be able to keep that in-house and keep that attribution on the SEO level, or however anyone's found that, which makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, and what's interesting is like someone asked in the chat, I'm trying to make I can find it. It's a really, 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 really good point. Like, how would you phrase like bestsellers, or how would you phrase our collection?
Our boxing collection, our boxing gear collection,
Yeah.
our best-selling boxing gear, our best-selling boxing gloves, whatever it may be that better defines exactly what's being listed underneath.
This is a chat GPT thing. Like if you're wondering, oh, how do you use AI to zhuzh up your website, and your website says our collection, Lauren just gave it to you.
There you go. By the way, if you are this site, and again, that's why like the first stage of like really understanding like who you are, who you're targeting is the most important thing, because that'll determine what you do here. Like if you put in like, I don't know, like best boxing gear, best sellers of boxing gear, or whatever, best boxing gear sellers, whatever the keyword is, or are you targeting someone who's, best boxing gear for newbies, or boxing gear for, to get started, or boxing gear for weekend warriors, whatever it is, that positioning of how you position the product is why like people are asking, like, why are we talking about the messaging or the positioning? Really wasn't the messaging, the positioning first, because you don't know what keyword to target until you figured out who you are and how you're positioning the product.
Precisely. And if someone's very new to boxing, you also, I think you had mentioned like Everlast and things like that. So
Everlast, that's what I was looking for.
It was a company called, in the 90s, it was a company called Sports Direct, which ended up acquiring the brand Everlast and the brand Lawndale and almost other, and turning them into cheap boxing gloves that fall apart after you use them like 3 or 4 times. That's a key differentiator is here. If you're going to go store and buy an Everlast brand, or buy this, buy that, but you know what? That stuff's going to fall apart. They have a page showing they've made this, that it's Boxer approved, this and that. It's not just a huge factory pumping it out. Major difference at the end of the day.
All right, Lauren, where to next?
That's not
You want to go to another
that's
website?
more of a content tip.
Ooh, sorry, little delay in the Zoom. My mistake.
That's all right. Could you bring up beauty?
This one, or is it the different one?
This one.
Yeah.
If you can zoom in a little bit to that navigation that's right underneath the logo, and try scrolling over.
I was gonna go right to that also, by the way.
Yeah. So this now here, not only is it a mess from a search perspective, but it's really a mess from a usability perspective. And then they list multiple brands in drop downs, and then they have focuses, which I believe is Linder Health, Jane something, makeup on that, which I would assume is probably the brands that they want to showcase the most. They probably put direct links into the navigation for better quote unquote link juice to go directly to those pages. But I found it really interesting that those same brands that they show in the navigation itself are not necessarily featured on the homepage, right? So actually, instead of thinking of the navigation as a place that you want to link to those specific brands, tighten up that navigation so it's not all over the place. Morty can, it's freezing on Morty and everything else, and really showcase those brands above the fold in small boxes that have a picture of the brand, something like that. It's not only going to be more helpful from a Google perspective, because then you're not relying on crawlers to go through and try to figure out the navigation and whatever technology you're using to serve that mega menu, but at the same time, having those direct links with the images right then and there helps the consumer, and it helps Google define what the most important brands are on the page itself. Because right now it's pretty much a jumbled mess from a navigational standpoint.
Yeah, and that's where I wanted to focus on this website. Also, oops, I'm having a problem with the site. It's
JavaScript, Morty. JavaScript. Before we move
jo-
on, excellent observation from Simon Cox, a loyal webinar attendee and friend of the brand. Simon says that menu might well be JavaScript that Google cannot crawl. Always a fail point. You want to contextualize that a little bit?
Go for it, Lauren.
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're seeing with the human eye, Google may not be able to see because of multiple issues with serving JavaScript to the engine. See this a lot in navigation. We see this a lot in accordions, panels, things like that. If you're using JavaScript to serve that content or to serve those navigational pieces, the Google crawler, they're kind of getting a little bit, but there's no guarantee that it's going to be picked up whatsoever. So it's good to have a fallback. A footer is a great place to have the fallback because then you can have the direct links listed in the footer. I think they do to a degree,
They
but
have
then
to a
again,
degree, yeah.
yeah. But then again, just again, having those squares directly or those showcases directly in the main component of the site makes a big deal. And I think, what's Bartosz's name, Morty?
What's who?
Bartosz, who has full from
Oh, from Onely.
JavaScript. Yeah, so
I can never.
it's basically,
Yeah, I can never pronounce his last name right. It's embarrassing.
yeah, so we're just gonna call him Bartosz from now on. So if you go search Google for Onely JavaScript do, and basically you put in the URL, it shows you the rendered page with script and the rendered. And if you see a huge difference where that navigation may not even be shown without JavaScript, code from the navigation in source code, which is also shown on that tool, it's a massive issue, not only from a Google perspective, but also from like the other search out there too.
Yeah, and like by the way, like just like really quickly on this website, one of the like big problems, like all of this, almost the entire above the fold is images. Google can't read any of this. It's all image text. But one thing, by the way, to go back to the menu thing, like really quickly again, like as SEOs, like we understand, like okay, like fine, like this might be problematic. Like this is probably not great for users. It's probably not great for SEO. There's something wrong about this. But the question is like, how do we get to this point? And how do we prevent the site or the client from doing something that like this when they can really be doing something much better for themselves? And again, if you look at the overall like issue with this site, is that they do two things. They have their own product, and then they're also a reseller. Oops, something happened with their website. They're also a reseller. And that again is like part of the reason why you have that large amount of items in the menu or a large amount of like subtopics in the menu is because they're trying to do a little bit of too many things at one time. And if you're able to get it, hone in and decide like, who are you, what are you, you'll end up a little bit more focused. Like, are you mainly your own product and you also are a reseller? You can do both, right? But just how do you set that up on the website? Like, what are the meta questions that set you up for SEO success on an e-com site? In this case would be, or are you a reseller who happens to have your own product? But when you run through this site, it's super confusing. I don't understand because you start running through the site, you'll see they do talk about their own product. Then they start having, they are selling other lines that are not their own. It's a little bit like hard to understand, like what exactly do they do and why do they do it? And I think that's part of the reason why the menu was unfocused. By the way, another thing to think about from a user point of view is when you show up and you see the menu and you're able to see, okay, like, you know, other brands, our brand, you know, I don't know, men's care or women's care, whatever it is, you get a sense of like what the website is about, whether or not it's relevant for you, whether or not to click through, whether to stay on the website. Again, part of the reason why the brand thing became such a hot topic in SEO were the Google API, quote unquote, leaks. And in those quote unquote leaks was, hey, it looks like Google might be looking at how long you're spending on websites or whether you're clicking through from the search, which we don't know for sure if they are or they aren't. But if they are, and that is something you're concerned about, having a user experience like that is almost like I don't know, I feel like a quick bounce and doesn't help you. And the reason why I think that is because they're trying to focus on too much. Try to understand, like, what should you focus on first and foremost, are you, again, in this particular case, primarily your own homemade brand, or are you a reseller? And tell me which one you are right away off the bat. Obviously, you can do a little bit of both. And to that, by the way, like a lot of the things get lost in here. I'll try to go back like here. Inspired by nature, powered by science. Like, why? Why does that matter? What does that mean? And you're not telling, again, you're not telling users, and you're not telling Google or other search engines. I shouldn't just focus on Google. Like, for example, if this particular case, if you're, I think what they're trying to say, maybe I'm wrong, is in this niche, in the health niche for skin products, either you're healthy or you're effective. But we can do both. Like, we're powered by science, you can be effective. We're also natural, so we're healthy. So say that. Tell that to users and tell that to search engines. Like, you need to be able to express who you are and what you're doing and give context to it, because otherwise humans and bots have no clue what you're talking about. Where to next, Lauren?
Exactly. Is my audio choppy? I'm seeing something in the chat about it.
You were in and out for like every split, like every once in a while, like a split second back in, back out. But
There's like
now
3 yeses, so apparently the answer is yes.
I'm trying to be polite about it.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
my bad.
No, but you seem good now.
Okay, good. So another thing on this too is I do a lot of work in the beauty space, and a lot of the work that we do is content driven, right? So just having pieces on things like morning routines, evening routines, actually how to use the product. Educational information is very, very big in the beauty space. And then the ability to then have calls to action directly to those product pages within that educational information is killer, right? It works 100%. This is also a brand. Things like, since they may be resellers and they have multiple different brands, the best, the best skincare products to use for this thing, the best this, the best that. List them and then put together your FAQs and things along those areas, sync that up with your schema to make it all rank better from an informational perspective, and just don't go after the transactional query and transactional intent in this space. I'm gonna switch over to a hardline real quick.
What should we go into?
I'm gonna switch over to to my Ethernet cable, just in case it seems to be the choppy issue.
Gotcha.
Awesome.
While Lauren's doing that, I'm gonna jump into another website called Clever Fox Books, which, by the way, is a great name for a website that sells books. And again, like, one of the things that like stood out to me, actually, it's interesting. They let me go back to the homepage. Yeah. If you look here, again, they're doing the seasonal thing. They're diving right into the Christmas shopping. They're based out of Ireland. So if you're doing the US, like, why aren't they going for Thanksgiving? Because there is no Thanksgiving. Maybe there is, but it's not the US based Thanksgiving. But if you look, by the way, like, one of the things that you'll notice if you go to like the book set page, like, oh, it's children's book sets. Oh, it's interesting, but it's a books.set page. Like, wait a second, like, why is it only kids books? And this again comes into like clearly stating that identity, both again for users and again for websites. It's because they focus only on children's books. And if you go again, like I love about pages. They're like, we actually did a whole webinar about this. It might have been on our side. It might have been on the SEMrush side a while back. I can't remember. I think it was on the SEMrush side. I think we did a webinar with SEMrush about this, why about pages are so important. And it's because it's one of the only places where you can be entirely explicit about who you are and what you do, which again is important for bots and users. And in this case, they're talking about, yeah, they're an online children's bookstore, and they basically only sell books for kids. So again, like, that's something, if you have that unique niche, it's not something to be scared of. I know a lot of e-com sites get scared, like, oh, if I'm too niche and like search engines won't pick me up for like buy books. But if you're targeting children and that's the product that you sell, then go for it. Go all in on that. And
Targeting
one of the
parents,
things,
Morty. They're targeting parents. Nobody's targeting the children.
okay,
Children don't
fine.
have money.
Yes.
But I want to
Yes.
wind back to the about section here, right?
Yeah.
One of the things I see, especially for products that, I mean, this is e-commerce, but if you're in B2B as well, and also for some professionals that maybe just are selling their services, you see a lot of platitudes. stuff that sounds great and is meaningless. I mean, if you are on this webinar, you probably looked at a digital marketing agency's website and saw the word creative storytelling somewhere there. What does that really mean? Be explicit with what it is that you offer, because at least then you can scoop up the high intent customers. If you're just spitting out platitudes, then you're as generic as everyone else. And that's what search engines, they just read the text. If there's nothing specific about children's books, then it's just books. And then you're going to lose.
By the way, like they do a good job. Like, we're specialized reseller of books and education materials made for children and kids. As a former teacher, I'm reading them like, oh, if I'm a teacher, then this is for me. Like it's not just like a place to buy, like, I know, Harry Potter. This is a place we made to buy like stuff for my classroom. So again, like if you're going to target that audience, like that's who you are as a brand, as a company, then target that, go for that, talk about that. By the way, just to contextualize that, I'll see if I can find it. They have a whole page about like how you can help your school. Yeah, here, like, earn free books for your school. Like if you start digging into the website, you really see like they're going after teachers. They're a resource for schools. They're a resource for school districts. They're obviously a resource for parents. But then again, like e-com sites, I feel, are so hesitant to actually go into that on the actual homepage, out getting right into the buy the book. But contextualize that. Again, if you it'll help you target keywords. It'll help you target search engines. It'll help you make the conversion once you get those rankings and bring the user in. If you're I buy a lot of books for my kids. And my general experience is that there's all these websites that sell these things, and they're generally like kind of the same thing. And they're all within like a couple of dollars of each other, if not less. If I hit a website and it's, 50% less, and then my natural instinct, by the way, if you are this kind of website, what users will generally do is not just look at your website. They'll try to see if the product is cheaper somewhere else. If I find it 25 cents cheaper somewhere else, but the messaging on the site and who the site is and how they're speaking to me doesn't align with me the way that this site does, I might say, you know what, like, I like this site. These are my people. 25, whatever. This is where I feel comfortable. This is where I'm going to make the conversion, even though, like, yeah, like it's 10 cents more expensive. There's a lot of power to speaking to your audience directly. And if you are an e-com site, don't be afraid. Speak to your audience directly, because there's no other way they're going to feel that connection to make that conversion. And again, there's no other way the search engine is going to realize that you're not the same thing as, like, I don't know, bookbundle.com, which sells everything. How is Google supposed to know, like, this website sells everything, and this website just sells children's, books or book sets, whatever it is. Lauren, are you with us?
I am, and hopefully my internet connection is fine. May just be an issue with the microphone. So one thing I'd like to talk about with this site is differentiation points. You had mentioned that the company can differentiate itself by better communicating to the buyer about why they're special, why the books are special, how it helps. All of their about pages, contact pages, everything else about the company are using the same exact metadata across the board. So one thing that you really want to do is differentiate your descriptions, titles, basic metadata on the site, especially those pages, and make sure you mark up your organizational schema so Google can better understand who you are and what makes you different. Because to your point, they are competing against the Amazon and the big box bookstores of the world. And if information about who they are as a company is their differentiation point, make sure that they can communicate that to Google as well.
Yeah. By the way, I was just like to tell you, as an actual former teacher who would buy these things for the classroom, like, it does matter. Like, if I knew like this was a place where like I can communicate with them, they understand like what I'm looking for, what I need, it does actually make an actual conversion difference. But yeah, by the way, if you're looking for, Lauren mentioned organizational structured data markup, we have resources on the Wix SEO Learning Hub that you can learn more about structured data markup if that's not your jam. And there are structured data markup code generators that you can use, and we link to them actually in the Wix SEO platform itself. Like, if you look to create structured data markup, we link to some of them. You can create, so if you're turned off, like, I don't know how to create structured data markup, there are generators where you just plug in fields and it'll create it for you, and you can just copy and paste it into your page, into the back end. Where to next, George? Are we going to another site, or are we going to questions?
Let us go to questions, but before we do, let me get back on this screen share here.
Yep.
I got to do this officially. There we go. Can you see it? Okay, cool. We're back to the agenda page. Nice, nice. Okay, one little quick thing before we get to the Q&A. Thank you all for your patience. Useful links. You can download these slides too. They're going to be on the webinar landing page if they're not already, but we have a guide to e-commerce SEO, on-page SEO for e-commerce, technical SEO, long tail keywords. Read all of this stuff. Like a lot of you are asking about, or maybe just a few of you over and over again about how to do these site audits, right? And a lot of the things that Morty and Lauren are talking about, they're kind of shooting from the hip, but also they've looked at tools. Like you can identify things just by looking at the website, but the only way to do that, the only way to interpret what you get from a site audit, from a screaming frog, is to have solid fundamentals. And this is how you do that. So download these, or not download them, bookmark them, and then take a look, and then you'll be able to contextualize what the tools tell you. Okay, cool. Moving onwards to the Q&A. I'm gonna stop this screen share so I can actually see my screen here. Okay, some of these are from the chat as well, because I just thought they were really, really good. We're gonna start with one that I think is widely applicable, and this is for people who sell products mostly, not services necessarily. Is it better for SEO to have only one collection? I'm reading this verbatim. Is it better for SEO to have only one collection instead of grouping collections by like the coastal collection or the modern collection, if it's all fabric, for example? So the question here is there any advantage or disadvantage to having multiple collections?
I think the advantage to having multiple collections is if you're an apparel company, you want to make sure you have pants, shirts, things like that. When you get collections that are a little bit more subjective, like benefits and things like that, I would see that as being second tier collections. And a lot of the time, e-commerce sites go there first because they're trying to address more of a lifestyle shopping experience rather than exactly what someone is looking for shopping experience. So don't overlook the basics. Whether it's, again, just, if you're selling furniture, you should have sofas, chairs, whatever. It shouldn't just be based on, comfort or whatever. That take that on as a sub tier or secondary tier. When don't lose the basics, right? Keep it simple.
Morty.
Yeah, I mean, like, it obviously, like, you don't want to get like overly complicated about it, but you want to speak to like your audience, like what they need. If again, like, let's go to the boxing website. Like if you have a collection for like, your audience maybe is a little bit split. Like you have, I don't know, you have beginners and you have moderates, intermediates. You can create collections that speak to both of those audiences, right? So you can have a collection that's maybe like the gear to get started, or you can have a collection like, gear to take yourself to the next level to speak to those different audiences. So you really want to use collections. I think you want to use collections to be able to speak to who you're trying to target effectively. Which doesn't sound like a novel point. Like it's
like naming your collections. Like I'm kind of distracted by the naming convention, coastal, modern. Like it should be more than one word, and that word shouldn't be an adjective because it's just not very descriptive. It's not very optimized. You're not speaking the language. I'm never going to search in, I want coastal on Google, right? I want a coastal like style living room or something like that. So think about that a little bit as well. Okay. Let's see. This is about contextualizing data. Analytics shows that I have like 100 visitors, but only 2 or 3 actually call or book. I provide a food sensitivity blood test. The question is, how can I find out why? But I want to look at that 100 visitors for only 2 or 3 calls. Does that number jump out at you necessarily? Like in terms of a conversion rate here, are we looking at a conversion rate of 90 out of 100 for your business? I think, like, what has your experience been with these things? Let's start with Morty this time.
Again, like I hate to use like an SEO cliche, but it kind of all depends. Like if I don't know if you sell aircraft carriers, like how many people are interested in buying an aircraft carrier? Like you might have someone search for like get an aircraft carrier, and you have like have 1,000 searches, but basically there's like 5 countries in the whole world who are buying aircraft carriers. So your conversion rate is going to be incredibly low, which is fine. You only need like 1 purchase of an aircraft carrier a decade to sustain your business. It really all depends on what you're doing. By the way, it also depends on like to contextualize that, if you have 100 visitors and you have like 2 conversions and you're going and you're looking at the website, you're like, wait a second, like these 2 people are buying, I don't know, like, let's go back to the apparel website. They're buying volleyball uniforms. And most of my focus is on basketball uniforms. And like maybe I'm mistargeting the audience. So if you can contextualize that data, understand like, okay, there's 100 visitors, let's say, or 1,000 visitors, and there's 4 conversions or 10 conversions or whatever it is. If there are signals that it makes sense, then it makes sense. If there's signals that tell you like, wait a second, like the analytics and what I'm showing on the website or what I'm doing with the website or how I'm optimizing the website don't align, then that might actually be a flag. That would be a flag for me.
The second part of this question I'm going to direct to Lauren is, how can I find out why? You have this number of organic visitors, but you only have this number of either leads or actual conversions. How do you find out why?
Yeah. So first of all, you're going to want to experiment a little bit with conversion rate optimization, right? Do you have enough calls to action? And does your call to action align with your target market? I've been working with a site recently that targets prospective students from the ages of 18 to 29. Their 2 main calls to actions are phone numbers and email. Do you know anyone that's 18 years old that picks up the phone or makes a phone call? So by implementing something as simple as a chat box or an intercom style chat implementation of the site, they saw conversions jump up dramatically because that's the comfort zone, especially when someone's on a mobile device. Also running something like heat maps on the site to see where people are going, what they're scrolling to, what they're looking at, what they're rage clicking on. Something may look like a conversion, but it's not. They're clicking and then they're clicking back. So really going down and getting started on that conversion optimization path is a great way to do so, and understanding the demographics of who you're targeting and how they like to communicate. I know with me personally, I'd rather put my phone number in and have someone call me than call that phone number and wait for 10 minutes for someone to pick up, right? Or I'd rather just talk to a chat bot. And then if you do have a chat bot on your site that can answer questions and then connect someone with a representative, that's also a lead generation tool, because before you start that chat, you enter your name, your phone number, your email, and then boom, you got the lead. So that all leads to a conversion. Just make it easier for whoever you're targeting, and try to stay away from any confusion on that end, because
I would
not all
also say,
sales happen when someone visits the site.
Also true. That's like that like myth of like, there's the funnel. The funnel is, to quote Google, the funnel is messy.
if you find that, let's say that your conversion rate is below industry average, you just have a lot of friends in the industry, or you find out that data one way or another, one thing that I always recommend is an SEO gap analysis. I mean, will that really fix your conversion rate? You might find some elements in there, but it also help you find out maybe why people are getting more visitors, or what the competition is doing that you're not. I'll put a link in the chat for our article on SEO gap analysis right there for you. Okay, but let us move on to this next question. We talked about.
I can actually add something on that last point, George, real quick.
I'll go right ahead.
One of the things that we're talking, just to piggyback on what Lauren was talking about, if you're seeing like it might be like you're not targeting the demographic the right way. Like, so one of the things I'm big on is that people generally, social media is great. It's a huge help. And what people fall into the trap with is like, they'll look at social, I don't know, like they're on LinkedIn or they're on X, whatever it is. And like, they look at like the number of likes or the number of comments or the number of reposts. But one of the things that you're going to want to do is, if you want to see like if what you're doing is resonating with the right audience, is understand like, are the people commenting, one, are they actually engaged? And are they the right people that you actually want to be engaged with, right? So let's say you're putting out messaging, you're putting out social media posts, you're putting out whatever it is. And the way you're speaking, you're getting like, you sell books and you're getting a lot of people who are commenting about comic books, but that's not your main jam. Like your main jam is selling kids books, like actual books. But if you get people posting or commenting or liking who, I don't know, the people liking the posts are all about comic books and comic book conventions and comic book this and comic book that, then maybe what you're putting out there isn't really targeting the audience the right way. And that if you're doing the same thing on your website, you can make a parallel between like what I'm doing here is not working, what I'm doing there is probably equally not targeting the audience the right way. So if you get a little qualitative about like how you're putting out what you're talking about and who's actually engaging with you, it could be a really strong signal to what's actually being effective to the people who are actually targeting on the website itself.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay. Let's return to that about page comment that we got here. Should you do an about page separate from the main website, or can you add that on the main website page? So I'm thinking they're referring to the homepage. Why have an about page versus just an about section? Let's go with, you know what? I want to go with Lauren again. Let's go with Lauren.
Yeah, so you can communicate so much more about your company on a standalone about page than you can on the homepage itself or an about section of the homepage. You can start out with about the company, the mission statement, why it was started, who the staff is, who the executives are, the history of the company, all of that. And that really helps us tell the story and the narrative about who you are, where you came from, and where you're going. I think it's incredibly important. It's also the same thing as as a contact us page, right? You always want to have a standalone contact us page that has your address, your phone number, separate addresses, maybe international addresses. And you also want, again, from a schema perspective, mark that up differently. So all that contact information is shown on the schema side. This may be SEO from years ago, but um, Google Google does a much better job of identifying the company as an organization and an entity when that information is communicated to it in a standalone page, other than when it's a section on a home page. And I see so many pages where it's a website is just basically one page and you click contact and it scrolls down and you click, it scrolls down. If someone really wants to know about your company, they want to know more than just one little section. They want to know the history of the company, who they're buying from, why they're buying from you. So a standalone about page makes it.
And on a one-page website, I don't know, you're a consultancy, you have a one-page website. Then fine, you can have an about section. You have a one-page website, and then sometimes that's all you really need. But we're talking about e-com sites. So you're talking about Google considers e-commerce to be your money, your life, technically speaking, although algorithmically they treat it a little bit differently from my analysis. But basically, it's your money, your life. Why? Because you have to pull out your wallet and hand over your credit card. Like that's a big deal. I think it's a bigger deal than you might realize. So if you don't have that contextualization there, it's not only a big deal to the user, but as Simon Cox correctly points out in the chat, it's a big deal to search engines because it's a trust signal.
Okay, let's move on to what'll be hopefully a short last question here, but it's kind of I picked it for a lot of reasons. There's conflict of interest here. You'll see why. The question was, I noticed improvements in organic search lately. I only modified the meta descriptions. Is that the main reason, or Wix itself has improved the SEO tool? So this person is on Wix, and I mean, there's very limited data here, but I chose this question for a reason. When you're looking at ranking improvements, there's a lot to think about here. Morty, if someone came up to you and says, I only changed meta descriptions, but rankings or traffic's gone up, like, what's going on? How do we think about, how do we interpret these changes? Even let's say they changed meta descriptions, rankings went down. There's a lot to unpack here potentially. How do you approach these performance changes?
I think Crystal would disagree with me saying this. I'll say this on the outset. I'm curious what Lauren thinks. I have hot takes about meta descriptions. I think that they get too much focus. I think they don't play a huge factor in ranking. I personally, we have, like, for example, the Wix SEO, the Wix AI meta tag writer. I have it write my meta descriptions for me, and, like, I read through it. I sometimes modify them a little bit because there's a conversion aspect there theoretically if Google doesn't choose to rewrite it. But I'm not a big believer in the meta description from a ranking point of view. I know that other SEOs disagree with me, so I'm just gonna put that out there to do your own research and make your own conclusion.
All right, I want to go to Lauren. So we have from Morty, meta descriptions might not be that big of a deal, which means that if you don't know how to interpret that, read elsewhere for why those things change, why your rankings or visibility or whatever changed. Lauren, what do you think?
In terms of meta descriptions, I'm a big fan of whether you're utilizing AI to write them or you're utilizing a copywriter or whatever. I'm a big fan. Google's not always going to show what's in your meta description in the results, but if they do, it gives you the opportunity to control that first impression that someone makes, right? And one thing I really like to do is look at the ad copy that if you're running a PPC campaign, the ad copy that's converting from a higher click-through percentage could be something that you implement that same tone and voice into your meta descriptions to help your CTR from an organic perspective. You don't want to have them be the same, but you may be able to get a higher click-through rate and a better representation of what your product may be right there, as opposed to having Google try to figure out exactly what the meta description should be by mishmashing content that's on your landing page.
Morty.
Can I qualify my statement having Lauren said that? If you don't have meta descriptions, or if they're all the same across the board, I do think that's something that Google can
Yes.
see and kind of like factor in. Like, take what I said before with a caveat.
I also want to point out, like, hey, look at your competitors. Did a website straight up close? Because that'll definitely do something. There's a lot that's going on out there. You are competing. You're looking at your website like, oh, how do I make this better, make that better? But if your competitors are in the dumps, you don't need to do anything. You just rake in that money. But on the other hand, if you think you're optimizing in the right direction, you're not paying attention to the greater context of what you're doing, that data is meaningless. So think more widely about why it is that you're getting the traffic or the rankings, right? There's a lot of factors at play here. I know that complicates things, but this is how you win, right? There's a lot of nuance here. Okay, we're coming up on time. Any closing notes or anything before we head out? Morty.
Yeah, I just want to say on your last point, like super quickly, yeah, like take a wider look. I've seen so many websites where like they do like a wider digital push. It does produce all of a sudden like a lot of serious backlinks, and they do see a boost, but you wouldn't say they didn't do like an active backlinking campaign. Right, but they did like I'll call it like a momentum campaign or a digital presence campaign, and that did result in an SEO boost. But they wouldn't have noticed it if because like yeah, like that wouldn't be SEO. We weren't focused on SEO, but there is often I'll call it like an indirect SEO impact. That's my last words, famous last words. Go Yankees.
Lauren, any
Hopeless.
words before we sign off here?
I just love what you're doing at Wix. Every time I check out my Wix powered sites, are getting better and better. So really cool to see. And for all of the attendees, just make sure that you go to Search Engine Journal, check out what we're publishing on a daily basis, stay on top of the SEO news, listen to everything that Morty, George, and Crystal are putting out there, and just continue to educate yourself because you're going to definitely get the jump of your competition. I have no dog in the World Series, Morty. But being an Orioles fan, I'm going to root for the West Coast Orioles, which are basically the Dodgers, up 2-0. Even though Shohei is having a rehab year, didn't get any hits last night. He's playing super hurt, and we're going to do good. So looking forward to the next couple games.
When the next couple of games, like there's one more game, Lauren.
We only lost like 10 viewers while you were saying
the
on
webinar's over, George. We hit the hour mark. We can talk about baseball now.
Thank you very much, Lauren, for your expertise. Thank you, Morty. And thank you to all of our remaining attendees. We hope to see you at the next webinar.